testifying today. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Heslin, welcome. We're very honored to hear your comments.
My name is Neil Heslin. My son, I'm Jesse Lewis's dad. Jesse was brutally murdered. Sandy Hook School on December 14th. 20 minutes after I dropped him off. This picture's a picture that was taken when Jesse was 6 months old. It was our first Christmas together. That picture over there is a picture of Danny's day, 6 months before his death. That picture up here is his class picture from last year. That picture was on the Port Jefferson Ferry. And Jesse was the love of my life. He was the only family I had left. It's hard for me to be here today talking about my deceased son. I have to. I'm his voice. I'm not here for the sympathy and a pat on the back, as many people stated in the town of Newtown. I'm here to speak up for my son. There's many changes that have to happen to make a change effective. Mental health issues, better background checks, bans on these weapons, bans on high-capacity magazines. They all have to come together and they all have to work effectively. It has to be done simply. Common sense tells you that. I watched that video this morning. That's a dangerous weapon, and anybody that can deny or argue that isn't being honest. Jesse was 6.5 years old. His birthday was June 30th, 2006. He was born. It was the happiest day of my life. Saddest day of my life was December 14th. It was the worst day of my life. I waited in that firehouse till 1 o'clock in the morning, or 12:30, till I knew Jesse was confirmed dead. Senator Blumenthal was there, Governor Malloy, the other congressman from Connecticut, along with the police and the first responders. I have a bond with them that'll last a lifetime. No person should have to go through what myself or any of the other victims' families had to deal with and go through, what the town of Newtown had to go through and is dealing with. This morning, on December 14th, Jesse stopped. We stopped at Misty Vale Deli. He got his favorite sandwich, sausage, egg, and cheese, and a hard roll. And he ordered me one. He would always do that. I'd get a coffee, and Jesse get what he called the coffee, but it was a hot chocolate. We proceeded to the school. It was 9:04 when I dropped Jesse off. The school clock. Jesse gave me a hug and a kiss at that time. Said goodbye. I love you. He stopped and he said, I love Mom too. That was the last I saw of Jesse as he ducked around the corner. Prior to that, when he was getting out of the truck, he hugged me and held me. And I can still feel that hug and a pat on the back. He said, everything's going to be okay, Dad. It's all going to be okay. And it wasn't okay. I have to go home at night to an empty house without my son. Something that should have never happened in an elementary school. People argue about the Second Amendment. Well, the Second Amendment is says well-regulated militia to bear arms, safe and free, freedom of state. Hasn't been well-regulated. And it's not being well-regulated. This bill that Senator Feinstein has proposed, I read over, it's not about taking the weapons from the owners of them. It's putting a ban on the manufacturing and curbing the sale of them. It's not hurting the sportsmen. It's not hurting the gun owners now. I fully support the Second Amendment. And I fully support the sportsmen and the hunters. I grew up with firearms. I started to skeet shoot with my father when I was 8 years old, competitively. In my younger teen years, I was a state champion. I achieved level of marksmanship with the rifles. I have a broad knowledge of weapons, including military weapons. I don't participate in shooting or hunting anymore. Times have changed in my life, and I had a young boy I devoted my life to. Ironically, the same day as Jesse passed away, 5 days before that, my mother passed away. Jesse had an interest in military. Jesse had an interest in guns, asked a lot of questions about them. Strange enough, the night before he perished, we were at Big White. He was looking at a survival magazine or a gun magazine. In that magazine, there were 3 weapons on one page. One was a Bushmaster, one was a Glock, and one was a SIG handgun. I had to go back the following day to look at that. But I quickly looked at it that night. It was an assault rifle and the 2 handguns. He asked me about those weapons, and I explained them to him, what they were used for and their capability. 223, it was a high-velocity, long-range cartridge. It was used by the military. And his response, it's a weapon or a gun that's used to kill people. I said, yes, Jesse, that's what it's used for. Jesse had a BB gun. I got it for him for Christmas a year ago. I taught him gun safety, looked over his back, and he was proficient with it, and he knew all the gun safety precautions. He could recite them to you the same way as I could when I was his age. It just breaks my heart that something like that could happen in this country and in an elementary school. I walked past the Capitol this morning, Capitol Police, 3 feet from me when I walked by him. What is he holding? An assault weapon, protecting our nation's capital, in fact, protecting us today. And a weapon, a similarity to that, being a Bushmaster, was brought into an elementary school, Sandy Hook, Connecticut, and killed 20 students and 6 educators. I just can't believe that could happen. Those weapons were used on the battlefields of Vietnam. They were used in the Persian Gulf. They were used in Afghanistan and Iraq. The sole purpose is to a lot of lead on a battlefield quickly. That's what they could do. And that was proof right there, that video this morning. They have the capability to be held and used to produce rapid fire. I asked a question a month ago, what purpose those served in civilians' hands or on the street. I haven't received an answer yet, but they did blurt the Second Amendment. It wasn't about the Second Amendment. I defend the Second Amendment. And I want to see that upheld and regulated, and it hasn't been. When that was written almost 300 years ago, we didn't have these weapons we have today and the technology. They had muskets and cannons. I think it was 1934 when the ban was put on machine guns and the regulation. We haven't had a mass killing with a machine gun since. I feel these so-called assault weapons that have certain characteristics should fall in that category and be banned.
Thank you, Mr. Heslin. Thank you very much. Dr. Begg, and then I'll introduce the remaining 4 witnesses.